I said on the actual solicitation for the questions that it was going to be just me, but you were actually in town for 3 days back from Narnia. You came out of the wardrobe.
Yes.
And you slayed that lion or whatever. I don't know what is there in Narnia.
I killed everything.
All of it. So Narnia's gone. It's extinct.
And then I'm heading back on another trip through a magic refrigerator.
Amazing. That's amazing. So we have Ian here today. So that's kind of fun. It's always better, I think, the Q&A for both of us.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's more interesting.
Agree. They're more fun this way.
They are more fun. And we've got so many questions and that we're going to try and lightning round some of it.
Yeah.
Because if we were to dwell on every one of these for too long, we'd be here for the next week.
After longer than when I have to leave.
We curated this, and this is already curated. It's 8 pages of questions. So we really appreciate the amount of engagement we get from our audience, and we love the Patreons. And obviously, you get involved in the Q&A if you're $5 or above.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
Anyways, let's just get this going.
All right.
Seth P. What's the word on the M27 project? The IAR.
Is he referring to the IAR?
Yeah.
Last I heard, the Marine Corps ordered a whole bunch more of them.
I think he's warning about us and InRange's project.
Oh, well, that's a question for you then.
It's
your rifle.
So, yeah, it's my rifle. I built it. I built a clone of the M27 IAR. We actually did some matches with it. We actually did a whole video about the IAR and the movement away from belt feds. Mm-hmm. And it just hasn't been published on the channel yet. We have a backlog of content. And some of it is preempted by things like desert brutality coverage or things that are going on in the current zeitgeist. So the M27 project, a lot of it's filmed and coming. So just stay patient and you will see it.
And I'm sure that gun will be showing up more because in its the 416 in general, which the M27 is a derivative of,
yes,
is becoming more and more popular with international armies.
So absolutely
true. The French have it, the Norwegians have it. There were some other people.
Oh, the Finns are too, to a degree.
Did they?
Yeah, okay. Well, I think they're special forces guys. And in fact, when the Finns came to shoot Desert Brutality, I asked them what gun they wanted to use, and they wanted the HK.
Everyone wants that 416.
So we unmodified it from the IAR config to just a combat rifle, and they used it at Desert Brutality. Nicolas B. Have you ever shot a Robinson Armament XCR, and what do you think? It seems to have very good ergonomics. I never have.
Neither have I. We tried, like 2 years in a row. Robinson actually promised to get us one for some video at SHOT Show.
Yep, and even sent us a receipt of it shipping.
Yeah, but it never showed up.
So, no, never used one.
Honestly,
I don't know.
I've shot an M96, their expeditionary rifle.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Sort of looks like a stoner, and it was a pretty ordinary PMAG adapter.
That's been the new term for a lot of black rifles for both of us is PMAG adapter. It's like, does it take a PMAG? Then okay. All right, next one. Devin S. Having gone with the Holosun red dots on your What Would Stoner Do rifles, will you be taking a look at their new pistol micro dot?
Probably not.
No.
The reason is on a rifle, there's basically very little force exerted on a red dot or on any optic on a 5.56 rifle. Mounting that thing to a pistol slide, it's getting slammed back and forth every time you fire. And we see good quality ones like Trigicon's original RMR suffering from that kind of abuse. I am not interested in trying to take a budget Chinese red dot and put it on a pistol.
I agree. The rifle application and the pistol application are entirely different things. The RMR has had failures. The Delta Point Pros have not. At least I am not aware of any, and we have not experienced any. Yeah. So going low budget, quote unquote, on a pistol dot is a dangerous endeavor and not one that I want to play with.
The other nice thing is, for whatever reason, the good pistol optics are a lot cheaper than the good rifle optics. True. That Delta Point's like $350, which is not peanuts. But it's not the $1,000 that a lot, $500 to $1,000 you're going to pay for a lot of good quality name brand red dots.
Spot on. And here's the name I screw up every time. You pronounce it.
Yeaman.
B. What are your thoughts on using snapcats or dummy cartridges for dry fire and gun handling practice? Do you think they're useful, and are they more trouble than they're worth? Well, one, I will say this. In some types of cartridges, in some type of weapons, you actually need to have a dry fire cartridge, or you will damage the firing pin. Yeah. That, however, is a very rare circumstance dependent on generally old designs or rimfire guns, rimfire firing pins. If I do not need to have a dummy cartridge or snap cap for the particular thing that I'm dry firing, I don't like them around because in general, even though they are obviously dummy cartridges, I don't like cartridges laying around in general because there's a higher likelihood of an accident occurring, in my opinion. What are your thoughts? I know they're red and they're obvious, but it's still stuff.
I deal with so much weird stuff that I actually once tried contacting Azoom. I'm like, can you just send me 3 of everything you make?
Right.
Because then I've had a lot of people ask me, why don't I use snap caps in Forgotten Weapons videos?
Right.
The answer is I'd have to carry around this entire briefcase of snap caps. And even then, half the time I wouldn't have the right one for a gun. So for me, if I was going to use them, I would want to get in the habit of always using them. and that's impossible for me. Like, they don't make 7.5 French snap caps or 45/60 snap caps.
Yeah, you can make your own, but that's a whole other problem on top of that. You know, the other thing is I would say is that besides the safety thing, which is kind of probably not as much of an issue as I made it sound like, there are very, very few instances in which dry firing a gun a couple times will break anything. There's one in particular, though, the Type 14 Nambu. The Type 14 Nambu, I'm not kidding, in one dry fire can break the firing pin.
Although that firing pin is very wimpy, and I think you're sufficiently apt to break it firing it for real, too.
But dry firing it really is a quick path to Type 14, no go, no more. So I had to make dummy cartridges for 8 Nambu. Anyways.
Then you discovered the real solution to that problem.
You get rid of your Type Nambu, Type 14. And by the way, if you want an upgrade, the Type 94 is legitimately better.
It really is.
We'll be
doing that video at some point.
Yeah, we are going to do that because the amount of hate the Type 94 gets is not, in my opinion, justified.
I'm told that it's like the worst, most unsafe handgun ever conceived by mankind.
That is false. Tyler R., if you lived in a banned state, what would your fighting rifle be? Well, let me say this first of all. We do have a project coming at some point.
We're doing this one too.
Yeah,
we're doing everything as video.
And so now I know we're going to have a Q&A in months. We're like, what happened to the project? Because it's coming. It's going to be a while. Some of the stuff we announce on the channel takes a year to get done. This one is what the non-permissive environment gun.
And our criteria for this is semi-automatic, non-detachable magazines.
Now, yes, and so that's what's coming to the channel. So please stay tuned for more information on that topic. However, my answer to this is, and this is going to sound snarky, I would not live in a banned state.
That's option C that wasn't presented as...
It is not, but it is the option I chose because I left.
Yeah.
And you can too.
You, in fact, left specifically over that issue.
This was the one that finally pushed me over the edge. Yeah, I left. This is a long, long, long time ago. Before things were where they were now, but I was looking at where things were going, where things were, and I'm like, I'm done, sold my house, left without a job, I'm leaving now, and I'm going to go move somewhere else, and it'll happen to be Arizona. So I can honestly, legitimately say, without being facetious, I would not live in the banned state. Now, that may not be option to you, and I realize that sounds snarky. I'm not trying to ant burn, as they call it. No, people refer to it. Yeah, it's called ant burning. But that's not my goal. But I can tell you, for me, personally, I would not. You may have to. What's your answer?
Well, you know, I've actually thought about this because some of the traveling I've been doing, you know, I'll go to a country.
And, you might go to a banned country versus a banned state.
And you get interesting situations in a lot of different countries. Like, their laws, it's not like pick a level of American regulation. Sometimes they're, like, weirdly different. Like, they don't care what the barrel length is. Right? South Africa. Barrel length is completely immaterial.
There's no SBR.
Right. Doesn't exist. And sometimes it's like military calibers are one way, but civilian calibers are different. To me, kind of the ultimate, and we'll see if this turns out, if this is held up through our project, but I kind of think the M1 Garand.
Oh, I consistently feel the same way.
It's just, I mean, we shot those in the Independence Day match last year and did really quite well with them. I guess my non-snarky answer would be it's the same. And we're going to actually bubba up it a little bit and try to modernize it with some sighting systems. So I think the M1 really still is a good answer. And if you were limited into nothing semi-automatic, manual only, lever guns, I think.
Oh yeah, no, not a bolt gun. I would definitely go lever gun. I would probably, frankly, go a 357.
A modern incarnation.
I would go with an 1873 in 357 Magnum.
Okay.
Man, that is a firepower. That gun has firepower.
Yeah.
Those are good guns. All right, next one. This one says for me, but it's really a question I think you're better at answering. Jeremy R., what do you think is the cause of the AR-10 not gaining as much popularity internationally as the FAL or the G3?
Kaboom.
Kaboom.
Kaboom. When the U.S. government was testing them, they had a round go out through the side of the barrel.
And why is that?
They were using at that point a composite barrel.
Right.
And
experimental lightweight stuff, right?
Yep. And the problem was the steel liner and the aluminum jacket of the barrel expanded at different rates, and they got delaminated, and the round went out the side. Fortunately, the guy shooting it didn't lose fingers or anything, but that was it for the AR-10 in U.S. testing. The gun honestly had all the problems that we see of independently developed rifles or guns today. They were trying to sell them to small countries at first. So the countries that actually did adopt the AR-10 were Sudan, Cuba, Guatemala, Portugal. Portugal was the biggest one. The Dutch didn't even quite manage to do it, even though it was being made in the Netherlands at that point. And every one of these times, like, the gun wasn't quite assembled right when they shipped it down for testing. And Nicaragua was on the verge of buying a big batch, and then their test rifle didn't quite go through QC right because the company was pushing too hard and they didn't have enough development time on the gun, and like fired out a battery or something in the hands of Nicaragua's head president or general. And
path to success right there.
Right. And the problem was, it was a fundamentally pretty darn good gun, but just that one, like, you screw up the one that's most important.
Reminds me of the worded lightning round. But if you ever look at the when they were trying to sell the Ingram Mac 10 and Mac 11s, some of the mistakes that happened with that, which are comical at best.
Yeah, oops, we fired it the briefcase mode backwards into the crowd.
Towards the audience. Yep. So it just had foible. It was foible with issues. Eric H. Given the hot weather in Arizona, do you ever pocket carry instead of IWB? If so, what do you carry, and are you interested in the Sig Sauer 365? I will answer this regardless of hot or cold. I never pocket carry. Pocket carry to me is close equivalent to not carry, because when you need a gun, it's not something that's you have a lot of, generally speaking, as a civilian who needs a gun for self-defense. The ability to get it out and quickly applied in a situation where you're under high stress is one that is not lent to having pocket carry. So if there is something going on that I have the time and fruition and forethought to go, I need this, and I have to go into my pocket and pull it out, I have the time to not be in that situation. So for me, pocket carry is a very dubious tactical decision.
Even if it's a full concealed Glock?
Oh, God. The folding Glock. Yes, even if it's a full concealed Glock. I am personally very opposed to pocket carry, and I do not believe, while obviously a gun is better than nothing, the chances of you being to apply a pocket carry gun in a situation in which most civilians would ever have to defend themselves is highly unlikely. So I don't.
I don't either. And I'm not particularly, I don't really care about the P365. I think I've heard some good stuff about it, but I honestly just don't really pay attention to new production guns.
Sig Sauers, I do, but Sig Sauers on this, for some reason for me, Sigs have just never been my thing, and Sig has always been sort of this, they make guns, right? I don't know. I've never really dealt with Sigs, never liked them. There's nothing wrong with them, just never really had any inclination towards them. Nicolas S. You don't like 3-guns specifically because of shotguns and how it becomes a game of reloading. But what are your thoughts about using them as a stage gun? That way everyone has to use the same gun, but has to reload from a box of shells if they reload at all, and it won't just be the guys with Saiga 12s sweeping the stage. Well, in that regard, I would say this. I haven't shot a lot of 3-gun for quite a while, but if I were to shoot 3-gun, the only shotgun I will use is a Saiga 12 because it gets rid of all the reloading nonsense. Now, maybe that new Mossberg magazine-fed thing might mitigate some of that too.
There are a number of mag-fed semi-auto.
But, well, the Mossberg is pomp. Yeah. We saw it at SHOT Show. But that still, believe it or not, that still puts you into open. Because 3-gun rules around how they handle a shotgun is the problem with the shotgun, not the shotgun. Right. So I don't like 3-gun's application of the shotgun. The shotgun itself is fine. If we have run 2-gun action challenge matches that are shotgun plus pistol, and those have been excellent because the rule set's totally different. Yeah. The right rules applied to the shotgun make it a very interesting dynamic weapon, but it's just not right in the way they apply it. But that said, the question's about stage guns, and I have a real problem with those because they never work out.
Right. So the problem with a stage gun is it's not the gun itself. It's a universal problem logistically in that once you have a stage gun, it becomes the match's responsibility for that gun to work exactly the same and properly for everybody in the match. So if it's your gun and it messes up or it loses 0, that's your fault. If it's a stage gun and someone turns a knob at one point, or even if people hear a rumor that someone turned a knob at one point on the sites, then all of a sudden, well, it was good when my stage did it, but when your squad went through, someone had changed the 0, so it's not fair, so you have to throw the whole stage out. Yep. And we even see some of these things happening in ways that we wouldn't have expected. Like at Red October last year. Yeah, last year. They had a bolt-action Mauser as a stage gun. And you only had to fire 1 round. 1 round. But it was, in order to keep it low power so they could use a pistol target at close range, they were hand-loading lead bullets. And after, 150 shooters had gone through, they were getting a lot of leading in the chamber. And so the people at the end had a much harder time trying to get that 1 round chambered than the people at the beginning.
In fact, at the end, I think they were actually running the bolt and saying bang. And just assuming.
Were they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So no matter how much you try and plan it out and get everything right, stage guns, there's just always such a likelihood that they will bite you. They're just not worth doing.
All right, next one. Christopher M. Do you see any potential for the Metalstorm system of electrically fired stacked munitions in concept since they went bankrupt?
Not really.
No?
It was really kind of deployed as a as an artillery sort of thing. Maybe
Wasn't it also used to destroy like incoming rockets and things like that, or missiles?
Maybe.
Yeah.
You have a fundamental marksmanship problem in that the barrel length is different for each projectile in sequence, so your velocities are going to be a little different. They're kind of using them as the equivalent of beehive rounds. So maybe as some sort of specialized thing.
Yeah. David P. Armed autonomous drones, future or doom?
Oh, but absolutely future and probably doom too.
My answer is both.
Yeah.
Next. Allan B. With regards to the 1873 Italian replicas of the Winchester rifle, does 45 Colt, loaded with smokeless, make the most sense due to more availability than 4440 and less pressure than 57 Magnum? Well, I would say this. It depends on what you're looking for. First of all, a 45 Colt version of an 1873 is something that never existed in the first place, so you're already off the reservation in terms of historical authenticity. You would need to stick with 4440 if you want that. If you don't care about historical authenticity, 45 Colt is definitely easier to deal with than 4440 in terms of case reloading, all that availability. But the thing is that this is all hinging on the issue of being less pressure, and a properly manufactured modern 1873 can absolutely handle 357 Magnum. So there's no reason to not go with 357 Magnum. The availability is there. You can still shoot. Sometimes you can load like 38 level power cartridges.
Do you think 357 is actually the best way to go?
I do.
Okay.
I do. If you're looking for if you want to take an 1873 and want to use it in a modern guise, the 357 Magnum is a great cartridge. It provides a lot more muzzle energy, velocity. It shoots flatter, and the gun's capable of handling it.
Okay.
So unless you're really interested in an old-timey cartridge like 45 Colt or 4440, I really think 357 Magnum is the winner.
Yeah.
So I would say go with 357 Magnum. Don't worry about it.
Even I learn something every time. I wouldn't have expected you to pick that.
That's my answer. Teddy, your thoughts on Project Appleseed and or other fundamental marksmanship programs? Well, I think any marksmanship program is a good thing.
I agree.
Like, why would we not want to pursue that? I think InRange has long been about the responsible and skilled handling use of firearms. So therefore, I will always promote any fundamental marksmanship training program. Project Appleseed has done a lot of good work. My only concern with Project Appleseed is I've seen people, I don't think they promote this, but I've seen the people react this way, is that a lot of Project Appleseed is held at reduced courses of fire, even as close as 25 yards. And they'll put up reduced targets that get smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. And this is the simulated 600 yard. Shooting a simulated 600 yard target at 25 or 50 or even 100 yards is not the same thing as shooting a 600 yard target.
Right.
So therefore, while all of the fundamentals of marksmanship still apply, reading wind, range estimation, all the stuff that can apply that when you actually get at range do not apply on that reduced.
Right.
So my concern about Appleseed only in that is that it should be very clear that if this is a reduced course of fire, it is a reduced course of fire. However, the fundamentals you still learn there are quintessential.
Yeah.
Matthew H. Of all the major world powers that use 5.56, who do you think has the best mainline service rifle, as in the M4, AUG, L85, etc.?
Totally the L85.
Oh, really?
No. The L85 has gone from utter garbage to reasonably acceptable rifle now.
Okay.
It's actually a fine gun. It's just too heavy for what it is.
Okay.
Best one is the U.S.
Oh, M4.
Yeah.
With hands down. And we've used,
I wouldn't say hands down, because I think,
Really?
I think it is the clear winner, but it's not the clear winner by a really huge margin. I think there are a lot of other guns out there that are within like 5%.
That's tough. I'm not sure I'd agree with that entirely.
Okay. You're not always right.
But I think both of us agree the M4 AR-15 series of rifles are the winners.
Yeah.
They still are. I know that there's challenges with every weapons platform, and the AR has been a challenge platform. But in terms of, God, we've used most of these. And it keeps coming back to AR.
Yeah.
It just does.
All the PMAG adapters.
And let me say that, when you look at, and I know competition is not combat. I know this. But look at competition, whether it's high-end 3-gun, 2-gun, there's one rifle that dominates always, and it's the AR. And if the AUG was the dominant, believe me, everyone at 3-gun would be using an AUG.
Yeah.
All of them would, and they're not. And the reason they're not is because the AR is what wins.
Yeah.
And that means something.
Yeah. And you even see that with special forces.
Yeah.
Like, how many countries out there, usually the special forces guys at some level have the initiative to be able to choose whatever gun they want.
True.
And how many of those guys, when their national service rifle is an AUG or an L85 or even something like a Finnish Valmet, a Valmet RK95, well, how many of those Finnish special forces guys are actually using AR derivatives?
Yeah.
A substantial number. And they're not going out there with like we're, you know, the National Army uses the Valmet, but we're going to choose to use the AUG instead.
No, you don't see it.
If they choose anything else, it's pretty much always an AR.
Yep. Chain Slack. This is kind of a nice message, so thank you, Chain Slack. Carl, you're a hell of a lot slimmer, stronger, and more nimble than you were a few years ago. I like to think so. Been working on that project for quite a few years now. Starting off from a bad place and getting to a better place, continuing to try. Gym was today, in fact. But here's the part that's the hinge. Have you found your shooting improving as a result? No, it's getting worse. I have become slimmer, yes. Stronger, yes. More nimble, yes. You and I have a very large contrast in that. Your nimbleness is above average by a large degree. People don't see that on video so much. When they compare me, which is probably a little behind the curve, and you're above the curve, it makes that disparity seem greater.
There's also not necessarily all that much place in two-gun where that really comes out.
Well, we saw some of it at Desert Brutality.
We see some.
Definitely Tiger Valley.
Tiger Valley more than anything else.
Yeah. But in terms of, is my shooting improving as a result, the answer to that is honestly no, and the reason is you can only put your time and effort into so many things.
Right.
My time and effort is now derived between some of my InfoSec stuff, other tasks, going to the gym, and in range. Guess what is not on that list? Shooting practice.
Yeah.
My shooting practice now is kind of where you're at, which is at matches.
Yeah.
So by putting my interests in or my effort and desires in other things, such as getting slimmer, more fit, that time is taken away from shooting practice, and no, my shooting has actually gotten legitimately worse. Oh well, that's just how priorities work.
I believe what they normally say is once you become a professional in the gun industry, you don't get to shoot anymore. Oh, so we're lucky in that we do some shooting.
We still do shoot.
But go talk to gun shop owners. You're like, when was the last time you went to the range? You got all these cool guns. And they usually go, January, I think, once.
And I would say that in the triangle of things of importance in life, being more fit is more important than shooting better, quite honestly. And so that's where the emphasis should be. Anthony B. Do you see an advantage of using a rebuilt sport or surplus bolt-action rifle versus a commercially available bolt-action rifle?
Nope.
Never. No. Not even close. Those old Milsurp things, there's no reason to spend the money on doing that. Yeah. You can go down to Walmart and spend, what, $500?
Less. I think you can get a Savage Axis for like $300 with a scope on it already.
And those things are already going to outperform, unless you put a lot of time and effort into a Milsurp, and you're then modifying a Milsurp, which is not great.
Now, if you go to a gun shop and there is a nicely modified, sporterized military rifle,
fine.
Not necessarily a bad choice, because you're going to pay something on par with a modern new production one. The poor guy who put all that work into it, he's getting screwed. But for example, one of the first guns I got when I was still in high school was a Swedish Mauser that someone had cut down and beautifully sportified, and they had a nice scope on it. It was a great little rifle, and it cost me some ludicrously small amount of money because it had no collector value. It was worthless. You know, it has the equivalent value of any generic hunting rifle. So I would not ever do that work to a gun, partly because I wouldn't want to cut up an original one. But even if like someone gave me a sporterized Mauser, Arisaka, anything, I'm not going to put the money into trying to make it a nicely sporterized one. Fair. Because that's just throwing it into a hole.
That used to be different way back when, post-World War II, when the surplus rifles were like $1 for a stack of them or whatever.
Yeah, because then the cost of modifying it basically brought you up on par
and
with
the cost
buying
of
a new gun.
And the cost of the commercial rifles then were different than now. The manufacture, the scale of manufacture now makes those Savages and stuff that are extremely accurate, great guns quite cheap.
Right. I mean, a crappy gun by today's standards is so amazingly fantastic by the standards of 30 years ago.
Match-winning rifle, like the top of the line.
And I'm sorry, you don't need a 1 MOA rifle to go shoot a deer.
Generally not.
You just...
Although that Savage might very well be.
It might be, yeah. But people are then going to say it's a piece of garbage because it's not a half MOA rifle. You know, like, whatever. Yeah.
So, no. Leonard S. I noticed Ian using electronic in the ear hearing protection. That was a while ago. Wondering what your thoughts are on the type of hearing protection for hot climates where muffs are, well, hot. You had electronic,
I hate earmuffs.
But you lost the electronic one.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I picked those up at SHOT Show, I think 2 years ago, and I used them for a couple months, and then I managed to lose them somewhere.
And then you had, now you've got the custom fit things or whatever?
Yeah. So what I did at Desert Brutality, there was a lady there who was making these things, and one of the problems with them is you cannot order them online.
No, because they have to shape into your ear.
They take a syringe full of some sort of plastic goo and squirt it into your ear, and you get custom molded ear pro. And so far, I've been extremely happy with those. I used to use the little squishies, and those worked, but these fit deeper. You can tell they deaden sound better. almost too much. There are times with those things that I have a really hard time hearing other people on the range sometimes. But they also, and this is important for us, they don't get uncomfortable over a long period of time the way the squishies do.
Wearing earplugs for a long duration of time, especially when you're on in-range stuff, like we're out there with those earplugs in for like 8 hours, 2 days in a row. Yeah, you can actually get like, I've actually had irritation on my ear, like little like scaling and stuff. Yeah. So,
and those custom fitted ones haven't done that for me yet.
I don't have custom fitting ones. I frankly just stick with the orange squishies because I lose about 7 of them per match. I just have literally a pocket full of them. They work really well. You just squish them up. I tend to stick them in, but I absolutely despise muffs.
Yeah,
I hate them.
It's not just the heat. They don't prevent sound. They don't deaden sound as well, and they get in the way of your rifle.
They also fall off. And when you're moving and you're jumping over a wall or whatever, and your muffs fall off, you now have no hearing pro. It's not good.
Yeah.
Billy K. Jr. When it comes to stage designs, do you keep the diagram of all the ones that you've made to reuse later, or is it a new one every single time? Also, Ian, has Ian ever designed a stage to give you a break? Well, actually, I do keep all of them. And there have been times where, now I've been running 2-gun for a long time. Frankly, when there are weekends where it's just like, man, I'm behind the ball and I just can't get stuff done, I'll go back to like 4 or 5 years ago and find stage 4 from 1 month, stage 3 from 1 month, stage 2 from another month, stage 1 from another month, and combine them. And guess what? By combining 4 from different months, I've made a new match. And a lot of the people there won't even remember they shot that stage 5 years ago or whatever, or they never did.
Yeah.
Or I'll take one that I did 5 years ago and just tweak it. So I actually have a repository of a file, a folder on my computer that's all the stages we've ever done from the duration of time.
Nice.
So
I have never designed one though.
Yeah, see,
I've given some input.
Yeah,
I've had some editorial input sometimes.
That said, there are a couple people that occasionally do help me with that you don't really see on InRange, and so I'm always thankful for that.
Yeah. If I designed a stage, it'd be like all left side shooting.
Oh, all left shoulder, left hand only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No spinners.
Must use a FAMAS.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So.
All right, this is an interesting one because the name of the person is probably Satan. Do you have a pre-match routine or ritual of sorts prior to starting a competition?
Nope.
No?
Well, yeah, we set up the camera and we do the intro, and we do the stage walk.
I thought you were going to talk about your...
And then, oh man, it's time for this. We got to run. It's Carl, you're up.
I thought you were going to talk about your methamphetamines.
I wasn't going to talk about that.
Oh, we don't talk about Pervitin. Yep. No, setting up the camera and doing stuff. But thanks for the question, Satan.
You know, actually, I think some of that comes from the fact that both of us, and maybe me even a little more, tend to use something different every single time. And so I kind of like the fact that I've gotten into this habit of you just pick up the gun and go. And I don't have to go through any elaborate preparation routine.
By the way, that's not a winning strategy. But the other thing is, frankly, we're so busy with running the match or doing whatever or filming that our biggest ritual is how do we get the footage out of this? I mean, really, it really is the truth.
You know, that's why we don't use the drone at matches.
The drone's, it's too much work.
We tried it once and it was too many things to juggle.
That we need a cameraman or someone dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Sheldon R. Is 22 LR a suitable caliber for doing high volume of fire training? It used to be.
I think prices have come down quite a lot. Yeah. Last I looked.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe not as cheap as it used to be, but it's cheaper than 7.62.
Totally. All right, next one, because we're going to rant on this one. Ian S. Why the hate on Serpa Holsters? One idiot uploads a video of shooting their leg and the whole community decides to shun them. This seems like the logic an anti-gunner would use. I'm freaking infuriated by this question, and let me tell you why. This question is an example. Ian, sorry, this is an example of ignorance. It's not one idiot shooting himself in the leg. It's many people shooting themselves in the leg.
And they weren't idiots.
It's rocks getting caught in the action that jam the gun where you have to use a Dremel to get it out of the system. There are video of that as well. And some of the people that have shot themselves are not idiots.
Right.
Legitimate firearms trainers that are not just that one guy that I shot myself. This with the wrong gun in the Serpa holster and the alignment of the button in an environment where it's under time stress or where dirt can get involved and the button can get jammed or whatever can get in there, the natural human instinct is to push harder on the button. If the button happens to release the gun and you slide up out of the holster, your finger naturally hits the trigger. We have done this at a match where people said exactly the same thing. They asked this question. And we made sure the gun was empty. And we purposely had people index their finger inward like this when the button was jammed. Remember, I don't know if you were there for this.
I wasn't there for this.
Andy, who's one of our 2-gun shooters, no longer in Arizona, but we wanted to see, is there a real thing to this? Because he didn't believe it either. Set him up with it, pulls it out, bam, dry fired the gun. We had multiple people do this. It happens because it's the natural ergonomic instinct to curve your finger in. I don't care how much freaking training you have. The holster is designed to induce a potential safety problem. Can you avert it by not doing that? Yes, but why in the world do you want a holster that can essentially encourage you to have an ND.
Yeah.
But above and beyond the ND, there are I've seen this. This happened at Two Gun 3 times, where we were pulling on a gun that had a live round in the chamber, trying to pull the holster off of the gun while pushing the button carefully because it was jammed in there because the action was jammed up with dirt and debris. Another one is Craig Douglas ECQC event where they were doing they were rolling in the dirt and doing BJJ and doing force on force. There's a video that's floating around the internet of them having a gun so jammed that they were pulling on it with multiple men trying to get it off. Lastly, it's made out of cheap plastic. There's another good one. This is another ECQC story. Serpas in the holster, run up, gun retention drill. Literally grab the holster, twist, and breaks right off. Literally will bust right off of the hinges and you can just take the gun. The Serpa has many issues with it. The reason the Serpa is popular is because it's low priced, tactical, and is used by some people. And with some guns, it's okay. But the problems the Serpa induces in terms of safety, failure, dirt and debris, breakage, all make it, in my opinion, bottom tier shit. And I can't believe that this keeps coming up because the amount of empirical data of how bad that holster is paramount. It's lots of it. It's volumes of data.
It's not even that it does anything really well to make up for it.
What is so good about this Serpa that we have to constantly have this argument about the fact that okay, fine, one idiot shot himself. That's enough for me. There's something wrong. If there's something wrong, why are we constantly fighting the Serpa? What is so, Ian, I ask you a question, Ian S. What is so good about the Serpa that by saying it's a bad piece of kit, you're now arguing that I'm using anti-gunner logic? Answer that.
Jason, all right, let's move on.
Jason S. Which country generally has the best and the most available AK in terms of quality, shootability, ease of access to parts, etc.?
The United States. Not the ones made here, but we have more accessibility to a wide variety of AKs than any other planet on.
Yeah, I wonder if this question is variety of AKs or who just has the best AK.
The best ones.
Isn't that Finland?
I would say not just Finland, but the Finnish derivatives. So I would put the South Africans and the Israelis in there as well. Because all three of those are basically the same gun. They're all Gallials.
But outside of that, if you want to talk about what country has the best availability in that one, definitely the United States. We've got people like Rifle Dynamics, Bulgaria, we got Arsenal, we got a whole choice, a huge volume of AKs to choose from.
Yeah, there are a lot of countries where they'll have, maybe they can get their own domestic ones plus Russia plus China or plus Romania and Bulgaria. Here in the U.S., we can get basically everything.
Yep. That's true.
Even with the embargo on Russia, we still have Feppers and Saigas and yeah.
Anders H. Any chance of seeing one or both of you running a two-gun match with a Youngman rifle?
If you consider the Hakeem to be a Youngman variant, then yes, it went online like 5 years ago.
We could do it again, though.
Yeah.
That's a gun that likes to eat fingers.
If you don't know how to run it right, yeah.
It's actually scarier than the M1.
Yeah, if you don't know how to run it.
Yeah. Oh no, but if it were to bite you, it's pretty. Fierce. It's extremely fierce.
Yeah.
The gun's a little nerve-wracking to deal with.
Now the one hitch is neither of us actually owns a Youngman.
Do not.
I own a Hakeem, which is the same thing in 8 Mauser.
It is. It's the same gun.
I actually really kind of like it. It's heavy and it's long.
It's interesting.
It's a neat gun.
Yeah.
So,
I could say we could do that again someday.
Yeah.
Nathaniel M. I'm eager to hear your impressions of the Henry quote-unquote original Henry versus the Uberti Henry, since you are a SAS shooter and own both. For cowboy action shooting, which would you choose, assuming either would be used in box stock form? I will say this, and we have both handled this gun. In fact, we used it for our recent What If Lever Gun series.
Which may or may not have posted by the time this Q&A goes
That
on.
one did. That one did. That was the Henry versus the Spencer.
Oh, right.
The Henry USA original Henry is
Gorgeous.
It's a work of art. It is the finest. I mean, finest probably is. It is some of the finest fit and finish of wood to metal mating, polish, fire blue. Everything about that is incredibly well done. It is absolutely fantastic. Comes out of the box, was actually zeroed out of the box. Didn't have to mess with the sights. Everything worked just fine.
Yeah.
The Uberti rifles do not have anywhere near the same fit and finish. You will sometimes find a handguard that's wobbly or loose. You will find the sights may or may not be zeroed, probably are not. You will find that the general brass, or I should say gunmetal finish, isn't necessarily right. Although, generally speaking, Ubertis are usable, but you're going to have to tweak on them. You're going to have to file the front side or mess with the rear side or change the windage, blah, blah, blah. But there's a caveat here, which is interesting. The original Henry, if you open up the guts, the internals are actually like MIM parts.
Okay.
The lever, like some of the toggle locks are...
Well, that's not surprising.
Doesn't matter. So the beauty of the original Henry from Henry USA is the externals.
Okay.
When you open it up, it's a little bit more modern in terms of how they manufacture the internals. They function the same.
Okay.
The Uberti is more historically pure in terms of how they manufacture the internals. The other thing the Uberti has an advantage to is that it's been around forever, and there are actually aftermarket parts and accessories if you wanted it for cowboy action shooting, such as a short stroke kit, which allows you to have a little shorter throw on the lever. They don't necessarily work or fit in the original Henry from Henry because the dimensions are slightly different.
Okay.
There's a lifter that you can get for the Uberti Henry that allows you to modify the gun to 45 short Colt, or this little new...
Equivalent to 44
what is it
Henry.
called, 45 action something or other, but it's yeah, right. So there's things you can, there's aftermarket support for the Uberti that doesn't exist for the Henry USA rifle.
Okay.
They both are smooth, they both function well. The Uberti, you may have a QC issue. The Henry USA gun, you will have no issues with out of the box. So if you're looking for something that is gorgeous, gonna work, zeroed, and you're not worried about aftermarket support, the Henry USA gun is beautiful. Yep. If you want to mess with it, or you're worried about denting, smashing, destroying, scratching, then get the Uberti and save a little money.
Yeah.
And if you want to, so there, that's kind of my answer.
Yeah.
That said, to be honest,
I agree completely.
That said, to be honest, I would not suggest a Henry for cowboy action shooting. If you want to go old school, go with a 66. Yeah. The Henry has issues in that you have to do the Henry hop. There are some safety issues with how you load the Henry. The Henry is not really well aligned. It works fine, but you're putting yourself behind the competitive curve at a SAS match with a Henry when you can get a 66 and still have the Kingsgate patent loading system, and it's just a much better gun.
Yeah. There's a reason that the Henry is so rare today compared to all of the following Winchester designs.
Gary Y. I know that you've done videos about Onward VR and its application to tactics. Have you tried Pavlov? It's more arcade-like. Yeah, I have. This is for me.
I haven't a clue. I've never
Pavlov is a VR shoot 'em up.
Okay.
Pavlov is more like just a regular run and gun like first-person shooter. It's fun, Gary. I'd say it's fun. Pavlov's fun, but Onward wasn't, to me, even though it is a quote-unquote first-person shooter, what Onward brought to the table that was so fascinating was the squad-level tactics and the actual combat simulation portion of it. Pavlov doesn't have that. It's more like just like running around shooting stuff. So tried it. It's okay. I'm not going to say bad. It's just not my thing. Will R. What is the strangest malfunction you've ever seen or experienced?
Well, for me, I was trying to think about this. The best one I can come up with is actually my RSC 1918 that I recently got.
Okay.
That we took out shooting.
Yep.
And the clips in it are these really thin, they're Berthier clips. They're really thin, wimpy sheet metal clips. And they work fine in a Berthier, but there's a lot more force working on them, I guess, in the RSC. Because we had on 2 separate occasions where the bolt would come back, it would eject a case, it would then eject a live round, and it would then jam a third round going into the chamber.
It did, yeah.
It's not the gun there. It's, you know, in fact, the clips that worked in that were the reproduction 3-round clips that they're making in Australia.
They're new and they're steel and they're kind of
much
forward,
better steel. So
that's
mine.
My weirdest one is really weird. I still to this day don't understand what happened. It was an AK. Okay. I was at a training event. And I was shooting the AK, and then it just completely stopped. Like it went to cycle and just jammed up. And you do the normal AK mitigation. You pull the mag, run the bolt, put a mag in, and then run the bolt. That's how you fix every AK malfunction, except this one, where the bolt would not come back.
Okay.
And so the next step is you take the dust cover off. There was an entire live round, a 7.62 by 30 round, a live cartridge behind the bolt carrier group, near the fire control group.
That's odd.
How that got there, I do not know. I fired a couple rounds before the malfunction occurred, so it wasn't there. It got out of the magazine and somehow got behind the bolt carrier group. It is inexplicable. I don't know, but that is definitely the weirdest one I've ever seen.
That's better than mine.
That one was, everyone's looking at it and we're just like, what type malfunction is this? Like, I never saw it again. Never happened again. Whoop! I don't know. James H. How do you feel about the current trend of people concealed carrying pistols with comps and optics? I don't care what people carry. That's your job. You carry whatever you want. You want to carry a board with a nail sticking out of it, that's your deal. So I don't really have an opinion about what other people carry. In terms of carrying them, I would think that you should carry whatever gun you have the most experience with that provides you the most capability if you should need it. And I think a gun with a comp and an optic very well fits that mold if you're willing to carry something big enough like that.
Yeah.
You agree?
Pretty much.
If you're willing to carry a Rolling Special 19, why not?
I like the optic. I haven't gotten into putting a comp on mine.
I like the comp.
Yeah.
The comp has some things you got to consider when you're firing from retention. So you may or may not want the comp. Like the comp is, you can mitigate that, but you got to consider it.
Or having a properly designed comp.
But you got to mitigate. You got to think about that. Well, when you fire from retention like this, you're going to get a lot of gas blast.
Do you see the thing that happened a couple weeks ago?
No.
This video out on the net. Guy was shooting and he had a Roland Special and like had weird spring tension in it. I don't know what he'd done, but it was ejecting cases really kind of limply and in a variety of directions. And he had a comp that had one big open top port, and a case came out and went plop right in the comp port. And he obviously didn't know it, and he was shooting a string. And the next round blew the front of the comp basically off because the bullet hit this empty case.
I have not seen this video. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
So,
anyways, a properly designed comp would not allow that to happen.
Right.
But you do have to think about that, especially from like a concealed carry position where you might be firing from retention, because you don't want to eat all that blast.
Yeah.
But I think having an optic is such a huge force multiplier. Why would you not want it, especially in low light?
Yeah.
Molly, what 7.62 by 25 Tokarev pistols would you recommend?
The TT-33.
I agree. That's the only one I could think of.
Yeah. Well, the other one is the CZ-52.
No, you don't want that.
It's it's interesting. There's a lot of old material written on the web about how the CZ-52 is a tank of a fantastic gun and the Tokarev is fragile. The reality is the exact opposite.
Yep.
The 52 does have some issues that if you combine the wrong factors, the gun goes kaboom. TT-33 is basically, it's a Browning pistol in a nice little cartridge with a completely self-contained removable fire control group. The only issue with the TT-33 is that it has no safety.
And then they've been modified to have some shitty safety.
In order to import them into the US, they had to add a manual safety, which is sometimes sketchy.
Some are done better than others.
I think, you know what else we can probably blame the TT-33 for? All of the weird goofiness of the Israeli shooting style.
Oh, yes.
That empty chamber carry.
Yeah, you can.
The Israelis early on were working with a wide variety of pistols, including stuff like Tokarevs that had no safety. And so in order to have one manual of arms, they went to carry it with the chamber empty.
Well, in theory, the safety is the hammer half cock or safety cock.
Yeah, that's a dumb way to carry a gun.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then you still have to basically
as you draw it, you can cock the hammer.
I'd rather try and just rack it than.
I agree. I'm saying you could do that too. I would not recommend it.
Having not looked into it, I am pretty sure the Russians just carried that thing empty.
That said, I would agree. If I really was on fire for a Tokarev pistol, I would get a Tokarev.
I still really want a genuine Soviet surplus Tokarev.
Sure, of course you do.
Without the stupid thumb safety.
Fair. Alvin York. Wow.
I
can't believe he supports us as a Patreon supporter.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. This might be more for you than me, frankly. What is it about heavier grain bullets that makes them better?
Okay, wait. This is just a pet peeve of mine. Okay, heavier grain bullets, like those bullets are made out of some sort of unit of measurement that's heavier than regular grains.
True, a grain is a unit of measurement,
Yes.
so therefore you should just say
That's like
heavier.
saying I ate too much and I became a heavier pound person.
So really the question should be, what is it about heavier bullets?
Right.
Just leave grain out.
Yeah.
I understand. No offense, Alvin York. So what is it about heavier bullets that makes them better suited for machine gun use? Throughout our history, we see nations adopting a heavier weight bullet for use with machine guns, like the PKM in the U.S. with the adaptation of the M249 SAW and the 62 grain M855.
And of course the French ball N.
Sure.
I think the idea is that they retain energy better at long range.
Yep.
Energy is a mixture of mass and velocity, and the mass is the same at every range. So at extreme ranges, which is where you're going to be using machine guns much more than rifles. People don't really care about...
Well, you can really area effect with a machine gun.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. And hit something out there in a way that you don't with a rifle. And countries always want to make sure that they have a certain level of effectiveness at that very long range.
Michael S. I'm going to answer this one first, but then you can answer next. Okay?
In fact, we should point out here that the M2 ball that the U.S. military used in World War II was specifically made a lighter bullet for this reason. Because they had trouble with training ranges.
And they were actually surpassing the actual safety capacities of the range.
Right. Yeah. The bullet had too long of an actual, complete, practical long range trajectory.
They actually deprecated the ballistic performance of 30-06 M2 ball because of ranges.
Right.
Crazy. Michael S. What lights did you use on your What Would Stoner Do rifles? What do you look for in weapon lights in general? This is going to be a snarky answer, Michael, and I don't want it to be.
I don't know what light I have on there. It's a light.
Well, let me. This is going to. I don't mean to be snarky. I really don't. I don't want to answer the question, and here's why. The light thing is like the knife thing. You ever been in a room with knife collectors and have them like start getting into a debate about knives? It is terrifying. And the light debate in terms of lumens versus this versus battery versus it's so tenuously crazy.
How many angels can, in fact, dance on the head of a pin?
That I have actually intentionally avoided answering this question consistently throughout the project. We had a light, we do have lights on the guns, and I recommend a light on a practical gun because you didn't know at Tiger Valley, for example, there might have been a dark room stage or something like that. But I am going to avoid this, and it sounds horrible, but I'm going to avoid it because that whole debate, the minute you mention any type of light, anything, there is going to be 5,000 reasons why you're wrong. So I'm just...
All right, so let's reframe this question to give it a usable answer for people.
Yep.
What features does the light need to have?
High lumens.
So it needs to be bright. It needs to have a way to be constant on, so I can take my hand off of it and still have a light.
As well as
but I also want a pressure switch.
I don't want to run a cable.
Yeah.
I don't want to run a tail. I don't want to run a tail.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would say ideally you want a way to have it infrared.
Depending on your needs.
If you have any sort of night vision stuff, you don't want to be like swapping out different lights or something.
Stick with white light. With white light, I would like high lumens, good dispersion of the light, no tail, the ability for always on as well as as on need and on pressure switch, but without a tail.
Okay,
that's what I want.
Makes sense to me.
But the light debate is huge, and here's what I'm going to recommend on that. If you want to get in on a debate about lights, InRange is not your venue. Your venue is primary and secondary.
Oh yeah.
Go to the P&S guys and go on, and this is honestly just I'm guiding you to another resource. Primary and secondary has endless resources about debates about lights, weapon lights in general, and practical use. In fact, many of those guys have practically used them in war as well as in law enforcement capacity. And they've got a wealth of information about lights and why. So I would recommend you go check them out on that.
Cool.
Jasper W. This kind of goes back to a question we had earlier. Why can't American manufacturers make a decent AK? Oh, they can.
They could if they wanted
Well,
to.
Rifle Dynamics does.
Yeah. Well,
Jim makes great stuff.
So there's a question here of what does make mean? What are we talking about with make?
Well, Rifle Dynamics definitely makes their guns.
So the difference is this assembling guns from military manufactured parts?
Parts kits.
Which is what Jim does. And there is absolutely a level of skill to that.
Yeah, that's true.
See, the thing is, Jim's not making his own front sight blocks.
Oh, no, fair.
He's not making pistol grips.
Right.
The problem we run into, well, you can have a crappy gun if it's just poorly assembled, like early century guns. You know, the receivers just kind of wibbly wobbly, and the rivets are not straight.
I heard the Galanis don't work.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
You know what? A substantial number of those Galanis do have problems.
Mine worked.
Or what really is the problem with American-made AKs are the companies that have decided that the surplus parts are drying up and are getting too expensive.
So now they're making
we'll just make our own.
Mill their own.
No, I wish if they were milling their own, that would help.
Yeah.
Like IO Inc.
Cast.
is casting trunnions and
Yes.
bolts, and
We
that's
saw
why
them.
they shatter. Now, to be fair, you can cast a really darn good part, but they're not. And the way these things were originally made, they were actually largely either, depending on what part it is, either forged and milled or just milled from stock.
I would say a cast bolt is a very dubious thing
I would
to
not do a bolt.
And they did. We saw a break at...
I think the casting is less significant than the specific alloy that they're using.
But we saw one break at Desert Brutality.
Yeah. Blocking one went.
Just fell off, and then you see the inside, and it looks like it looks like pot metal.
Yeah. So these things can be done right, but they are not being done right, and it's a matter of what people are willing to spend on those guns.
That's it. You just struck the answer. The reason is this. The AK is inappropriately perceived as a low-price budget gun, and therefore, if you're going to manufacture them here, not build them, manufacture them here, you have to hit a price point that equates to the market demand for low-price budget gun.
Look at it this way. What does a Valmet cost you? What do you expect a Valmet to cost you, or an IMI Galil? That's the true cost of manufacture of that gun, because those guns are being made to sell on the commercial market.
Yep.
A Romanian Wasser 10 is a gun that Romania made by the hundreds of thousands for its own army, and they spent a shitload of money doing it, and they paid for it. And then 30 years later, or 10 years later, or whatever, however long it was, then the government changes and they're like, we need some cash. Let's sell a warehouse full of AKs. And they sell them dirt cheap because the guy who's selling them isn't the guy who had to pay for making them. And they show up here and they're $300 10 or 15 years ago. And people get this idea that an AK costs $300.
Yep.
And so when Century goes to try and make its own, it has to compete with its own price on imported stuff that you're not paying for the actual cost of manufacture. And the result is you get cheap garbage that breaks.
Because of the expectation of it being a low-cost budget rifle.
Right.
Yep. Fair enough. Justin A. Why do you hate shotguns? Kidding aside, do you think a shotgun would fill the role adequately for a quote-unquote truck gun due to the utility-type nature that is often associated with it? Well, I would say that American law enforcement thought it was the right gun for a freaking long time.
Yeah.
Because it does have a lot of dynamic capability. You can buckshot, you can slug, you can hit at range. I think as a quote-unquote truck gun, the shotgun has a very likely practical role.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of depends what you're doing with the gun.
Yep.
What is your utility purpose? But yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to modernize it a little bit with a red dot or something like that, so much the better.
Yeah.
But I think a shotgun is absolutely a viable and efficient truck gun.
Doesn't hurt that they're cheap, and it doesn't really matter if you scratch them up most of the time.
And I'll tell you what, at the right range, a shotgun with proper buckshot or slug is the closest thing you'll ever have to a 100% one-shot stop weapon. Chance H. With the advent of 3D printing and 3D metal printing, in the near future, do you think we will start to see fully 3D printed guns and ammo? You know, it's interesting. At our DEF CON speech we gave, 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. That's what we were talking about. We were talking about the future of sinter metal 3D printing of guns.
Yep.
We did not talk about ammo. So let me answer the first part. Do I think that we will see fully 3D printed guns at some point in the future? I think yes, with the caveat of barrel and pressure bearing surfaces. You think we'll get there even with 3D?
Absolutely.
So you think we'll have
I would
all
say
of it?
yes without qualifications.
So yes, we will see 3D metal, sinter or some sort of metal printing guns.
Yeah.
Ammo?
No. Well, brass, maybe? I don't know about the technical aspects of sintered brass, like assembling it, manufacturing it that way. Bullets, maybe? I think for a lot of these things, what 3D printing offers is maybe not applicable. So like casting lead bullets and jacketing them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure that it's actually more efficient to do that, even with really good futuristic 3D printing, because we've got that procedure down. We know how to do it. We can do it very quick, very efficiently, and very cheaply.
Yep.
For a lot of the firearms parts, yes. Casting a bullet, getting the jacket, there's really no wastage on that. Yep. One of the big things that 3D printing does, among other things, is it eliminates waste material. If you have a 1 pound part, you're going to use 1 pound of metal to make it, not a 5 pound block of bar stock, and 4 pounds of it turns into chips that you then have to recycle or throw away.
The other thing that 3D printing of guns was going to do is going to really cause havoc with gun control laws.
Potentially, yeah.
Because once that technology becomes...
It'll be a little while longer before that becomes something that's in the household.
No, but when it becomes essentially fairly readily available...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This changes a lot of things worldwide, not just U.S.
The other thing about ammo is no one's going to be 3D metal sintering gunpowder.
Yeah, you need the propellant.
It's a chemical process. Same with primers, just because of the chemical elements going into
All
them.
true. This one's kind of more for you. I'm not sure though. Desi O, what do you think? Why do you think currently and historically American shooters, for the most part, seem to put an emphasis on long-range marksmanship potential of military rifles? You once called it the cult of the individual marksman.
I think it has to do with the character that we've decided to adopt for ourselves as Americans, and I think largely the history of Americans on the frontier.
Yeah, I agree
where
with that.
marksmanship was a valuable, if not essential, skill for just an individual person.
Or just making it across the state or whatever, or the territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You want to eat tonight? Well, you're going to have to shoot something to eat.
Or keep something at bay.
Yep, exactly. We had a lot of people living on their own in remote areas. Our military was, for a very long time, basically a volunteer militia, where your individual marksmanship was a really big part of it.
This is philosophical. I'm going to put one more thing on that. I think another thing that's a very American thing is when you say individual.
Yeah.
The exploit of the individual, or the exceptionalness of the individual, or the ability of the individual to accomplish an incredible task is something we kind of put an emphasis on here.
Yeah.
And when you think of, let's go with Soviet doctrine, they were much more collectivist.
Yeah.
It wasn't the individual that won this battle. It was the whole group of comrades, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, the ability for the individual to have great marksmanship wasn't as relevant. I mean, that's philosophical.
Right.
But I think there is some of that in play.
And it's not that other countries don't do that or other cultures don't have that
Right.
value, but I agree that I think America does it a little more
That's
than
the
a lot of
American,
other places.
the American rugged individualist
Yeah.
thing. And I think it applies.
Every country has its own basic sort of stereotypical character.
Yeah.
And generally there's a very real kernel of truth at the heart of stereotypes like that.
I'm not denigrating anyone. I'm just saying I think that whether right or wrong, that American emphasis on the rugged individual
Yeah.
applies to individual marksmanship or skill
Yep.
in a way that is unique.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, what is the best choice in brand and model for buying a lever gun in 2018? I kind of answered that already.
Wow.
One that has historical significance, fun to shoot, cheap to shoot, good to build quality. I would say once again, an 1873 and 357 Magnum. If you want historicity, go in 4440.
Okay.
That's where I go.
Alrighty.
London J. Why isn't 545 more widespread? I've seen a few AR uppers, obviously AKs, but surprisingly few. From what I know about the ballistics, this thing can be as close as you can get for a perfect combat rifle round.
You're right, but it's not quite 5.56, so
Here's the problem, and this actually, you have it, the hard as hell 2-gun stages aren't up yet. I shot hard as hell 2-gun with a 545 AK. I was the only weirdo in the entire event, of course, doing that out of 100 people.
how very odd.
Here's where 545 is a problem in this country: quality ammunition. I have a good gun. The gun can shoot well. I'm shooting tool ammo because guess what? Guess what's on the market? Tool ammo, Wolf, some Eastern European
And
stuff,
a little bit of surplus corrosive stuff.
and it's all crazy Ivan in every box. Like, it's not good ammo. It's acceptable ammo. It fires every time you pull the trigger. But when I say good ammo, if you go to the store and buy a 1,000-round crate of IMI 5.56, that ammo's probably minute and a half ammo. You go buy 1,000 rounds of Tula 5.45, regardless of your gun's capability, it's 3 to 4 minute ammo. It's just what it is. Now, Hornady for a while made some high-end 5.45. They kind of got out of that because there wasn't enough demand.
Yep.
So I think the problem is that since 5.45 is an anomaly here, the quality of 5.45 isn't where it needs to be to make it not an anomaly, and therefore it doesn't become standardized because no one wants it because it's not that great in the first place.
I think the other problem is it really doesn't offer anything different. So you can get AKs in 5.56. The Russians took 5.45 because, well, they developed 5.45. They weren't going to just adopt American 5.56.
Right.
But we have 5.56 here. What does the 5.45 do that the 5.56 doesn't?
A little less recoil, a little lighter.
Right. There are subtle differences between them, but there's no real compelling reason for me to go to 5.45 instead. And so I think it remains just kind of the cool side gun. And,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Hunter O. Given the majority of combat situations take place within roughly 100 meters, why have we not seen a transition to shotguns as primary infantry weapons, considering shotguns are easily lethal with buckshot at that range and have a higher hit probability with buckshot than rifles?
Well, that would be Project Salvo, Project Spew, and the Advanced Combat Rifle.
Yep.
I'm going to say sarcastically, the answer is because you can't win, can't parry with buckshot, or duplex ammo, or flechettes.
Back to the American emphasis on marksmanship.
And if you look at American military firearms, there is always a substantial impact on their design from the known distance competitive shooting range.
Including the sights in many instances being so bad for anything other than than competitive shooting that they're completely useless in the field.
Yeah.
The 1903 Springfield is example up the Crag. Sights on that are like ridiculous. You put the peep up and you're like, it's a pinhole because it was exactly the right diameter for the target at the distance they were shooting at. But anyways.
In general, though, it's because, well, there's always the concern about, but what about that long-range shot? You know, if there's a guy at 300, you are not getting him with buckshot.
And don't forget, now we have body armor,
and body armor, yeah. But that's kind of always been the objection. A lot of the Spew and Salvo stuff where they were experimenting with multiple projectiles and burst weapons and that sort of thing. A lot of it came down to reliability, but a lot of it also came down to we just aren't willing to sacrifice the ability to make a precise shot at very long range because the weapon's capable of it.
I also think the reliability of getting a lethal good shot at even 100 meters with a shotgun is a lot different than a rifle.
And we have to, I mean, I'm assuming here that this question is kind of hypothetical.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because the real answer is because a shotgun takes forever to load, and you get to carry, I don't know, 50 or 100 rounds total. You
Yeah.
get 7 or 8 or 9 in the gun, and it is absolutely not an equivalent combat weapon to an M4.
No.
Not enough ammo, too much recoil, not enough follow-up shots, not enough ammo capacity on the soldier. The ammo is incredibly bulky to actually transport logistically. There are a myriad of reasons why we don't use combat shotguns for
Even
everybody.
plastic shotgun shells can swell.
Yeah.
Or have problems in feeding or extraction. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Obviously, in my opinion, the shotgun is the equivalent to a submachine gun in application.
But yeah, except even lesser.
Oh, I take the subgun, but I'm saying those are more similar roles.
Yeah. Yeah, the question should be, why not give everyone a submachine gun?
Which that's been tried
Yeah, more or less.
and it worked pretty well actually,
For
depending
limited role.
depending on the combat that we were engaged in. Sean S. Whatever happened to the Google Hangout idea? Was it just not viable due to the chaotic nature or just time constraints? Let me answer that. What that means. We were offering as a perk occasional Google Hangouts where we get online and just hang out with people. To say that it was chaotic would be an understatement. It was insane. There was like a gazillion people trying to all talk at once, and there's no way to moderate who can speak at a given moment. That's not anyone's fault. It's the nature of the technology.
Yeah.
And so there's like chattering and then this changing and that, and then it was very, very. I found it very difficult to moderate
Extremely difficult to work with. Yeah.
and actually communicate on.
Yeah.
It was sort of fun, but it was very difficult. Time constraints are legitimately, honestly, another part of that.
Definitely.
And that said, we do have Discord servers, which are our private servers, and there are, for example, voice chats, at least on the InRange one, that go on. There are people on there voice chatting all the time. Like they get together, they have like group chats.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I think the Discord server has brought together the community in a way that those Google Hangouts never could have.
Yeah.
And I do join that quite a bit. I'm on there a lot. So
Okay.
if you're on our Discord, you'll actually see me pop on and chat once in a while. And so I think the Discord has become a better technology for us to just hang out as a community.
Google Hangouts is good for like a directed
Business
conference
meeting.
call sort of thing. It's not good for a general group conversation.
So that's kind of where I'm at. Thomas A. Recommendations for 2 GACME without a semi-automatic rifle. Pump, lever, bolt, speed line, lever release, straight pull, etc. So what would we use that's manual in 2-gun that's not semi-auto? First of all, why would you not bring semi-auto? That's
State restrictions, maybe.
okay, but if it's for fun, what would be next best?
PCC with a lever gun.
God, I'm kind of back to my 357 Magnum lever gun
Kinda.
again. I really
think
am.
that's going to be the most effective.
Yeah, it would be. I think you'd have the most effect with a 357 Magnum lever gun. Even more so than a bolt gun.
See, the problem is pretty much all the bolt guns are in full power rifle cartridges.
And that's not that great.
Their stripper clips are sometimes slick to load, but sometimes not. And you've got a lot of recoil going on, to the point that I think it would be kind of interesting to do a 2-gun match of like a 1917 Enfield against 357 Marlin lever gun.
That could be part of what we do with the What If lever gun project.
Yeah.
So I would go with lever gun, 357 Magnum. Again, I know we have a recurring theme, don't we?
Practice loading.
Yes, and you could do that while you're
Practice
moving
loading.
between positions.
Yeah.
Sven J. You mentioned that the FAMAS is one of the full bolt bops that you actually liked. Was it the operating system, ergonomics, or some other specific or general feature that made it stand out from other bullpups that made you like it? Have you shot the AUG and the Tavor before? Well, you must be somewhat new to the channel because there's actually a lot of content on the channel about the Tavor. I shot it in a couple of matches. I actually did better on the clock with the Tavor than I expected to, although I do not like the Tavor. The gun just does not suit me. I've shot the AUG. I think with the FAMAS...
Shot the F2000.
The tactical tune I used extensively. We shot the Keltec RDB. We've shot a number of bullpups on the channel. The FAMAS, I was really surprised by it because you were able to acquire one of those unicorns. And it is a svelte, well-handling, well-balanced, decent trigger,
It's kind of everything that he was listing there.
good sights gun.
Yeah.
Reliable, simple, delayed blowback. There are ambidextrous issues with it, and there are optic sightings issues with it that should be mitigated.
The optics one is, I think, the
But
biggest.
those two things aside, and the magazine's garbage. But those things aside, the gun handles really well.
It's one of those guns where they put in the development time on that gun to make it good. And all of the little details are just really good. One of the cool little tricks that I didn't learn until after I'd done the video I did on the FAMAS, the balance on it is such that you can actually stand a FAMAS up on its muzzle brake.
and it'll just sit there straight, looks like some kind of, it looks like an unnatural thing the way it balances.
Yeah.
But that shows you how balanced it is and how in line the actual recoil system is.
Yeah.
And the delayed blowback is such a simplistic gun with that lever that it's like, that gun is not, that's one of those guns that I see as a sad thing in that it's not going to see a better future.
God, if that had the development cycle and the aftermarket support that the AR does,
Yeah.
it would be an amazing weapon.
No, I agree with that. I do.
Well, actually, the G3 is kind of like that, in that the G3 has gotten some, not as much, but the G3's gotten some of that development cycle. And you can get G3s with better stocks from people like Spoor and good triggers and optics mounting, which that stupid claw mount, that's on an HK, that's the equivalent of the various types of goofy rail on the handguard thing for the FAMAS.
Yeah.
Where now they've got G3s with a piece of pick rail welded right to the top.
So, to answer your question, it handles better, it's smaller, better, it's more svelte than you would think when you actually hold it. It's really diminutive. It's got minimal recoil, it's got a decent trigger.
I love the built-in bipod.
Ergonomics are good, yes.
Floated built-in bipod.
Yeah,
it's nice. The front sight's nice and crisp and narrow.
It's a compelling gun. It should have seen more. Brandon A. Would using airsoft guns be a viable option to train for two guns, such as getting used to using the gun with an elevated heart rate? No, I don't think so. There's not enough accuracy to be dwelled out of it.
True. I think the things you could get out of it are the things that aren't actually about the shooting.
Yeah.
If you wanted to practice things like movement, retention, how does my gear work when I'm jumping over a wall, and you didn't want to be doing it with a live gun,
fine.
Airsoft is a decent place for that.
In terms of actually drawing and engaging and actually neutralizing targets under time stress,
right? You're not really going to be able to replicate the ability to make hits under stress because either the targets are going to be so easy that you can hit them with an airsoft pistol, or you can't make the hits even if you're standing still.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I think airsoft has a place. You can use it for force-on-force training. You can use it for obviously airsoft mil-sim kind of games.
Yeah.
You can use it for testing out your gear, but it's not going to train you for two-gun. Andrew L. Last Q&A, you were asked about getting DQ'd. I'm curious how often, why other people are DQ'd for your matches. Beyond that, how are they treated when they're DQ'd?
We whip them and tell them never to come back.
That's not true at all. How often are people DQ'd from our matches? Not often. Maybe at the regular monthly match, we'll see one every couple months.
Yeah.
It's almost always the same reason. It's almost always someone has a terrible holster that does not retain their pistol. They jump over a wall and it falls out. Yep. That is 90% of two-gun DQs.
Yeah.
The other 10% are something like they accidentally broke the 180 briefly with their muzzle or something like that.
Or the occasional, like, picked up a rifle with your finger on the trigger and put around, like, into the side berm.
Yeah, that's really rare, though.
It is.
That's extremely rare. The number one is just bad retention of pistols. How are they treated like that? They're treated with respect because anyone can be DQ'd as long as they weren't doing something that was reckless. Then it was just a mistake.
We had a bunch of people not a bunch. We had, what were there, like 3 people DQ'd at Desert Brutality?
Something like that.
I think all 3 of them stuck around for the entire rest of the match and helped out.
They didn't have to.
They're awesome.
If they wanted to go home, that's fine. The answer is they're treated with respect, but it is a serious situation. A DQ is something to not be foolhardy about because it was a safety violation or something like that. And it's a learning experience, so you treat it as such. Tyler P. Do you find it difficult to separate firearms and politics? I find it very refreshing to watch in-range and forgotten weapons and not have the political stuff shoved to me. No, I don't find it difficult at all. It seems like the audience finds it difficult.
I cannot really quite understand why more people aren't able to do it.
I don't get it because
it's really pretty easy, actually.
So for example, of course, the most loaded one. So you're using, let's say I happen to be doing this. There's going to be a video in the future with a G41.
Okay.
Semi-automatic, kind of experimental rifle that the Germans developed with the bang system. Mm-hmm. It's mechanically interesting. The fact that it was deployed in the Eastern Front in the worst combat ever seen by mankind with the bang system makes it an interesting application of a design that really didn't see any other real fielding in the world. Mm-hmm. The fact that they realized after 2 years, like, oops, and they went to the 43 is also interesting. So how does that gun work in those environments? To me, is absolutely abstracted from the politics of the people that designed or used them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they were Nazis or frickin' Smurfs. It's a gun that's mechanically interesting, and understanding how it worked in the field is what I'm curious about. And why, when you go use that gun in a match, someone has to bring the politics into it is absolutely incomprehensible to me. I cannot get my head wrapped around it.
I think there's also the issue of today's modern day politics of gun rights and legislation.
Yeah.
And it is possible to talk about the guns without having to, to return to our 5 minutes of, not the equivalent of the 5 minutes hate, the lecture on modern day gun rights and politics.
There are lots of venues for that, and there should be venues that also. I think one of the things you can do, as a pro firearms thing, is to present firearms. I think hopefully the way we do, which is in a responsible way. That's a skill building exercise. That is an educational resource, and I think by normalizing the conversation, where it's not always about politics, makes it a more palatable conversation to be had.
I have a secret too. I think there's a trick going on here. In order to convince people that guns are cool and interesting and we should maintain and perhaps even grow, in fact, even grow our access to them and our rights with firearms, you don't have to just beat people over the head by telling them that. You can present firearms as interesting and useful and historically relevant and let people get interested in firearms. And then they will, on their own, realize that perhaps they should become active and help support our right to own these.
Or you can even just show them being used and having a good time with them in skill building.
Yeah.
Like just literally a normal day at the range or a normal day at the match with normal people enjoying guns and having a good time, using it as a self-improvement tool is a powerful message.
You don't have to be the Jehovah's Witness of gun pamphleteering.
No, no offense to those with the watchtower apparently today, but yeah, but you're right. You don't have to be beating in heads.
Yeah.
I think there's room for all forms of conversation on that topic, and our version of it isn't that version, and that's fine. Rompa Stompa is an adjustable gas block recommended for a competition range-only weapon that will always use the same ammo.
No.
I don't like adjustable gas systems, generally speaking. Now, an adjustable gas system allows you to quote-unquote do something like use foul to roam or use bad ammo or use good ammo, but this is an instance which will always use the same ammo. Adjustable gas block for a gamer gun can allow you to mitigate or to reduce the recoil so much that you're just barely functioning. I don't like that game. It's not my game. I just want the damn thing to work. And so to me, I've always found adjustable gas systems to more often than not just be on the wrong setting. So I just don't want it. But
Okay.
like the FAL. The FAL has 7,000 gas settings. It's like, how many freaking clicks can this gas setting thing have? I don't understand that. I'd rather have the G3, which is just pull the trigger and stuff happens. Like, so, which of course has no gas setting because it has no gas system. So, yeah, I don't like them, frankly, unless you want to game it up. Ferris, I have a two-part question. Oh, but I only have one of them. So we have a one-part question. At what range do you zero your WWSD carbine? I zero it at the same range I zero all 5.56 guns. 50 yards, confirmed at 220 yards. Go.
Ah, I was going to put in a joke there.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say it is a two-part because you do 50 and I do 2 1/4.
Oh, I screwed it up. Yeah, no, what you do is you start it, you zero at 50 and then you confirm it at 220. Your ballistic path and trajectory from 50 and 220 is the same. You zero it at 50 and then you confirm at 220 to make sure your windage and elevation is exactly spot on. And you now have a flat shooting hold on pretty much out to 400.
Yeah. You'll be a little high at 100 and you'll be a little low past 250. But for the purposes of any of the competition we're doing, really,
Yep,
put tight on target, pull trigger, done.
exactly.
Which is, by the way, exactly how the military uses them.
It didn't used to be, but it is now.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Yeah. The Project Spew stuff, when
Yeah.
they were doing hypervelocity flechettes, like 4,600 feet per second, one of the goals of that, or one of the requirements of that project was that the sights have a single setting out to 400 meters.
Oh,
And ideally 550.
yep. Spot S, in regards to competition, what would you like to see more of and conversely less of from competitors or matches, stage designs, etc.? We need to start going more lightning round. More physical elements integrated with par times, and so inducing mental, physical stress on the clock to get accurate marksmanship and skills.
I've yet to run into a stage or match that had a physical challenge that I thought was challenging enough.
So you agree with that?
Yes.
Well, what I want to see less of? Less stages of hidden targets, hidden paper, or stages that require 72 rounds on 34 pieces of paper at 1 yard. I hate that stuff. Blasting targets 1 yard away is a waste of money, time, and ammo. So less of that.
Can't argue with that.
Tyler H., what do you think conceptually about B&T's universal service weapon? I've always thought a pistol with those capabilities might be slick for a Leo.
I really want to get one and play with it. The problem, so I think it looks super cool and really neat.
when I try and step back and look at it objectively, I have a bit of a hard time coming up with, like, what's the actual practical use for this? I think maybe there's some, but I still really want one.
Yeah, I want one too. Do they have, would it be slick for a Leo? Yeah, although a Leo could also just go into his trunk or whatever and get his M4 out. Or at least some can.
The question to me is, how useful is that stock really versus how bulky and much of a pain in the ass is it to actually carry the thing?
So hopefully someday we'll get to play with one.
Yes.
Sean S. Love both in-range and forgotten weapons. Keep putting out great content. Thank you. My question is, why is the Krag Jorgensen basically the unappreciated redhead stepchild of all of the turn-of-century bolt-action rifles?
No stripper clips.
That's
Single
it.
locking lug.
That really is it. The single locking lug isn't such much an issue with good ammo.
Yeah, it's an accuracy issue
Still
potentially.
scary, though. Krags are accurate guns.
They can't. Well,
They're slick.
They can be.
Yeah.
They're very nice shooting guns, but I think the problem was they were designed a little too early, and they didn't have all of the features that would come just a few years later. So it really is, if you are any real organization and you have the choice between a Krag Jorgensen and a Mauser 98,
Yeah.
why would you not take the 98?
I agree.
And that's why.
That's it. Ian H. I see you always carry an IFAK on your battle belt. What do you keep in it? That's probably a video, frankly, and maybe that's what I'll do in the future where you just kind of,
Skittles.
it's a lot. No, it's not Skittles. But why is it positioned where it is on your belt? Quite honestly, it's positioned on my belt because my IFAK isn't necessarily for me unless I'm the one that got hurt. It's on there because I can pull off the belt and get to it should I need it. But I have very limited real estate on my belt, and my belt needs to have magazines, rifle magazines, pistol, drop pouch, and so it's positioned where it is to get it out of the way but still be on me.
Right.
If it's a high-risk environment, you'd probably be advised to have a break-free tourniquet somewhere on you that you could get to quicker than that battle belt. But the reality is the IFAK is probably, if it's for me, someone will find it on my belt and use it on me. If it's for someone else, I just click the button on my belt, pull it off, and it's accessible. So it's really about belt real estate. That's the answer to that. Jeffrey L. If people continue to design and manufacture tube magazine shotguns, why has no one developed one with the mag tube on top of the barrel to ease speed loading? Have you ever seen one like that?
No.
That's interesting.
I don't know that it would ease speed loading.
Well, you could just.
I don't think that's faster than
I
going
guess
in
well, the thing
Your
is,
ammo starts down here on your belt.
so if you're running the shotgun like this and you got if the magazine was up here, you could go like this, which would be like you have to do this, right? But at the same time, if you watch 3-gun guys and they're the ones
They
that know how to do
always
this, what they
tilt
do
it
is
on
they
the
just
side.
flip the gun upside down and they do this. So guess what they did? They just made the tube be upwards. So if you have it like this and then you flip it,
Okay.
I guess it induces more complexity that doesn't need to be there.
No, I feel like you could, in fact, just design one that had the tube on top.
Yeah. Never been done, has it? Oh, it's probably has been done. You'll find one someday.
Eventually, I'm sure I will.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm trying to think. I can't come up with any like fundamental serious problems with that.
I guess I would say that the way they are currently doesn't prevent speed loading. We've seen it with
Yeah.
3-gun. The way those guys speed load them now, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, these days are doing 4 at a time, which is kind of nuts. So
And with the design of shotguns, speed loading has rarely been the goal.
it's not really that important.
Yeah.
Auntie R. What is your opinion on modern air pellet and BB guns as a training tool? Oh, wow, we kind of answered this about 2-gun. No, not really, because the problem with it is they just don't have the sufficient accuracy and range to be leveraged properly.
I think they'd be better than, well, they're definitely better than airsoft.
Better than airsoft.
I think you could use that probably if you were in some situation where, you know what, actually, I could see this.
You could
if-
do like an indoor, like
like
reduced range thing.
indoor, or if you live in an area where you've got a reasonably sized backyard, but you're in the middle of a neighborhood or something.
You could do that.
And you can't be just shooting firearms.
Yeah.
You could do stuff in the backyard with an air gun.
Yeah.
It's sufficiently accurate, I think, that it...
If you reduce the ranges and make the target small enough.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would let you practice, I'm going to do 100 burpees and then shoot a string of rounds and see how bad
All
it
right,
is.
I'll buy that. More so than airsoft.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. Andy, would the PKM work as well with rimless ammunition? Could a Western military adopt it in 7.62 NATO and still be as good?
Yes, the Poles did.
Exactly.
7.62 NATO, I don't remember what they call it.
There's nothing about the PKM that makes it require rim ammunition.
In fact, if anything...
Probably it would work better.
Yeah.
All you got to do is modify a couple things.
Yeah.
So
And
yes.
they have. Those do exist.
Answer is yes. Duke von Meep II. Wow, we got royalty amongst us. I've asked this question before, sorry. But what is your experience with the Bisley-style grips on Colt-style revolvers? Positive, negative experiences? I hate them.
I think they're cool, and the one single-action army I have is a reproduction Bisley.
I absolutely hate them. The Bisley was designed as nothing more than this competitive marksmanship, single-shot, this stuff, like for shooting competition. Bisley
Bisley
competition.
nachos, yeah.
In terms of what that grip provides is it literally does not allow, it's supposed to not let the gun roll in your hand. And the plow grip on a traditional Colt, the recoil causes the gun to roll in your hand and allows you to recock the hammer and bring it back down on target, which is a more combat-oriented situation.
Yes.
So I like the plow grip, and I want it to roll in my hand. I want recoil to be able to cock the hammer and bring it back down. The Bisley is actively trying to defeat that.
Right.
And therefore, it, to me, defeats the purpose of the gun.
Now, the Bisley does have a lowered and extended hammer
Yes.
to allow you to recock it without losing your grip.
Still.
But
I don't like them. He likes them.
see, I bought one shortly after I had been spending a couple of years doing bullseye pistol matches, which was exactly that style of shooting. It's got a 7.5-inch barrel, too.
Matt, 136. Dear Carl, well, I guess Ian as well, what is your at-home dry fire regimen? How often a week? What dry fire practice, etc.? 0.0% ever. I don't get any dry fire practice at home, and I do not recommend that you should not if that's something that you want to put emphasis on. Obviously, keep all ammunition away from you, nowhere near you, but dry fire can be a truly marksmanship building drill.
Absolutely.
Back in my years of high power, I would sling up and dry fire on a little teeny tiny dot across the house. And I could sit there and see the sight move or not move when I do it. Click. And do this. Click until my arm fell asleep from the sling. So I used to do that, and I would probably do that once a week, and that really helped with my long range on high power. But as for right now, absolutely 0%, not even on the radar of something that I'd be doing.
Yeah, same here. I just don't have time.
Sorry.
I wish I did.
Yep. So I don't know if that answers the question the way you'd want it, but man, we just got through 8 pages. Some of that was lightning round, some of it was not. Guys, thank you for watching a very long Q&A and for supporting us, because it's Patreon guys, $5 and above. They get to ask questions in the Q&A, and hopefully we get to as many of them as we can.
And it is you guys that make this channel happen.
$1 and above is what makes that happen. So it's Patreon that keeps this alive, because we don't receive our funding from anywhere but you, the viewer. And so thankful to those guys. If you can't do that, please subscribe to our channels. You can find all of our distribution points on InRange.tv. Share with your friends. Thanks for watching.